Sometimes a
Listen
single
to me!
decision can alter the course of two lives
I
forever.
can't. Not
On a
now.
cold
Why are you
Tuesday
doing
morning in
this?
March, Marcus Rodriguez
Why
was
did you
running
follow
late for
me?
his construction
I couldn't
job
let you go.
when he decided
It's
to
too
take
late
the
for
scenic
us.
route
Please
across
don't
the
do
old
this.
Riverside Bridge.
Please,
He
don't
had
go.
no idea that
I
this
have
simple
to.
choice
It's
would lead
over.
him face to face with
Wait!
a desperate young woman standing on the wrong side of the safety railing, tears streaming down her face as she stared into the churning waters below. What happened next would not only save a life, but uncover a connection so extraordinary that it would challenge everything Marcus thought he knew about fate, family, and the invisible threads that bind our lives together. The woman he pulled back from the edge that morning carried a secret that would shake him to his core and reveal a truth that had been hidden for over 2 decades. This is the story of how a moment of courage led to the most shocking discovery of Marcus's life, and how sometimes the people we're meant to save are the ones who end up saving us. Marcus Rodriguez slammed his hand against the snooze button for the 3rd time that Tuesday morning. The digital clock glowed an angry red 7:15 a.m., and he was supposed to be at the construction site by 8. His supervisor, Mike Patterson, had already warned the crew about punctuality after the Henderson project fell behind schedule. Marcus couldn't afford another late mark on his record, not with rent due next week, and his daughter Sophia needing new school clothes. He stumbled out of bed, his back protesting from years of heavy lifting and long days bent over concrete foundations. At 34, Marcus felt older than his age, weathered by a decade of construction work and single parenthood. The small apartment felt cramped as he navigated around Sophia's scattered homework papers and art projects that covered every surface. She had stayed with her grandmother the night before, which explained why he had overslept without her usual morning chatter to wake him. The shower ran cold after 2 minutes, typical for the old building's ancient plumbing. Marcus dressed quickly in his worn Carhartt jacket and steel-toed boots, grabbing a stale donut from the counter as breakfast. His truck, a battered 2010 Ford with more rust than paint, coughed to life on the 3rd try. The radio crackled with morning traffic reports as he pulled out of the apartment complex parking lot. The fastest route to the job site would take him through downtown via Interstate 45, but traffic was already backing up, according to the radio announcer. Marcus drummed his fingers on the steering wheel, calculating his options. He could sit in traffic for 40 minutes and definitely be late, or take the longer scenic route that wound through the older part of town and across the Riverside Bridge. The bridge route would add 15 minutes on a normal day, but it might actually be faster given the traffic situation. Marcus turned left at the next intersection, heading toward the River District. The neighborhoods here told the story of the city's evolution over decades. Victorian houses with wraparound porches sat next to modern condos, while small businesses with hand-painted signs competed with chain stores for customers. Marcus had grown up just a few miles from here, in a house that had been demolished years ago to make room for a shopping center. As he drove, his mind wandered to the conversation he'd had with Sophia the night before. His 8-year-old daughter had asked him why her mother never called anymore, a question that pierced straight through his heart. Marcus's ex-wife Carmen had left when Sophia was 4, claiming she wasn't ready for the responsibility of motherhood. She had moved to California with a man she'd met online, leaving behind only a note and promises to visit that never materialized. Marcus had learned to be both mother and father to Sophia, braiding her hair before school despite his clumsy fingers, attending every parent-teacher conference, and working extra shifts to afford the little extras that made her childhood special. Some nights after Sophia had gone to bed, he would sit at the kitchen table and wonder if he was doing enough, if she was missing out on something important by not having her mother around. The Riverside Bridge came into view as Marcus navigated the winding road along the riverbank. Built in the 1950s, the steel structure had been painted a faded blue-green that reminded him of old copper pennies. The bridge stretched nearly 800 feet across the Brazos River, connecting the downtown area with the historic district on the east side. During rush hour, it typically carried a steady stream of commuters, but this morning the traffic was lighter than usual. Marcus was halfway across the bridge when he noticed the figure standing near the center span. At first glance, he assumed it was just someone taking in the morning view of the river. The spot was popular with photographers and early morning joggers who liked to pause and watch the sunrise reflect off the water. But something about the person's posture made him look more carefully as he slowed for a red light at the far end of the bridge. The figure was a young woman, probably in her early 20s, with long dark hair that whipped around her face in the morning breeze. She was wearing jeans and a light blue sweater, but what alarmed Marcus was her position. She was standing on the wrong side of the safety railing, her hands gripping the metal barrier behind her as she faced the churning water below. Her body language spoke of despair and finality in a way that made Marcus's blood run cold. The light turned green, but Marcus didn't move. Cars behind him began honking their horns, but he ignored them as he watched the young woman. She was crying. He could see that now, her shoulders shaking with sobs that were carried away by the wind. She lifted one hand from the railing and wiped her face, and for a terrifying moment, Marcus thought she might let go entirely. Without conscious thought, Marcus pulled his truck onto the narrow shoulder of the bridge and turned on his hazard lights. He jumped out, leaving the engine running, and began walking quickly toward the center span. His heart was pounding, and his mouth felt dry. He had no training for this kind of situation, no idea what to say to someone who was clearly contemplating ending their life. But he couldn't just drive away and pretend he hadn't seen her. As he got closer, Marcus could hear her voice carried on the wind. She was talking to herself, or perhaps praying, in words too quiet for him to make out. She was younger than he had first thought, maybe 19 or 20, with the kind of delicate features that reminded him of Sophia's baby pictures. There was something familiar about her face, though he couldn't place where he might have seen her before. Marcus stopped about 10 feet away, not wanting to startle her. "Hey there," he called out softly, trying to keep his voice calm and non-threatening. "Beautiful morning, isn't it?" The young woman turned her head toward him, and Marcus saw her eyes for the first time. They were a striking hazel color, flecked with gold, and they were filled with a pain so deep it took his breath away. Her face was streaked with tears, and there were dark circles under her eyes that spoke of sleepless nights and recent trauma. "Please don't come any closer," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I just need to be alone right now." Marcus held up his hands in a gesture of peace. "I understand. I'm not trying to bother you. I just noticed you seemed upset, and I wanted to make sure you were okay." He kept his voice gentle, the same tone he used when Sophia woke up from nightmares. "I'm Marcus, by the way. I was just driving to work when I saw you here." The young woman studied his face for a long moment, as if trying to decide whether he could be trusted. "I'm Elena," she said finally, "and I'm not okay. I haven't been okay for a very long time." Marcus nodded, taking a small step closer. "Do you want to talk about it? Sometimes it helps to tell someone what's going on." "I'm a pretty good listener." Elena let out a bitter laugh. "Where would I even start? With the fact that I'd just found out everything I thought I knew about my life was a lie. With the medical bills that are destroying my family? With the fact that the person I loved most in the world is dying and there's nothing I can do to save him?" The pain in her voice was so raw that Marcus felt tears prick at his own eyes. He thought about Sophia, about how he would feel if something happened to her, and his heart went out to this broken young woman standing on the edge of disaster. "Those sound like really heavy burdens to carry all by yourself," Marcus said quietly. "But ending your life won't solve any of those problems. It will just create new pain for the people who care about you." Elena shook her head violently. "You don't understand. There is no one left who cares about me. The person who raised me is dying, and I just found out that he's been lying to me my whole life about who I really am. I don't have any real family, any real connections. I'm completely alone in the world." Marcus felt something twist in his chest at her words. The despair in her voice was so familiar, echoing his own feelings during the darkest days after Carmen had left. He remembered standing in Sophia's nursery at 3 a.m, holding his crying daughter and wondering if he was strong enough to raise her alone. The loneliness had been crushing, the weight of responsibility overwhelming. "I know what it feels like to feel completely alone," Marcus said, taking another small step forward. "When my daughter's mother left us, I thought the world was ending. I felt like I was drowning in responsibility and fear. But I learned something important during that time. Sometimes family isn't about blood or biology. Sometimes family is about the people who choose to stick around, who choose to care about you even when things get hard." Elena was listening now, her grip on the railing loosening slightly. "You have a daughter?" Marcus smiled, the first genuine smile he'd felt all morning. "Her name is Sophia. She's 8 years old, and she's the best thing that ever happened to me. Even on the hardest days, when I feel like I'm failing her, she finds a way to remind me that love is the most powerful force in the universe." "She's lucky to have a father who cares so much," Elena said quietly. "The man who raised me, his name is Robert. He's the only family I've ever known. He took me in when I was just a baby, gave me everything I needed. And now he's dying of cancer, and I can't afford the treatments that might save him." Marcus felt his heart break a little more for this young woman. That must be incredibly difficult, watching someone you love suffer like that. The worst part is, I just found out that he's not actually my biological father. He never told me I was adopted. I discovered it by accident when I was going through his medical files, looking for insurance information. There were adoption papers, birth certificates with different names. My whole life has been built on a lie. Elena's voice broke on the last word, and fresh tears began streaming down her face. Marcus could see that she was getting more agitated, her grip on the railing becoming more precarious. "Elena?" he said, his voice taking on a more urgent tone. "I know it feels like everything is falling apart right now, but running away from the pain won't solve anything. It will just pass that pain on to other people. What would Robert think if he knew you were considering this? How would it affect him during his treatment?" Elena's face crumpled. "He would be devastated, even with everything that's happening, even though he lied to me. I know he loves me, but I can't bear the thought of watching him die. And I can't bear the thought of being alone after he's gone." Marcus was close enough now that he could reach out and touch her if needed. "But you won't be alone. There are people who can help, resources available. And maybe, just maybe, you'll find the family connections you're looking for. Sometimes the answers we need come in ways we never expected." Elena looked at him with those haunting hazel eyes, and Marcus saw a flicker of hope there, buried deep beneath the pain. "Do you really believe that?" "I do," Marcus said firmly. "I believe that sometimes the darkest moments in our lives are actually doorways to something better. But you have to be alive to walk through those doorways. You have to give yourself the chance to see what's on the other side." For a long moment, they stared at each other across the space between safety and disaster. Marcus could hear the traffic moving behind him, the normal sounds of people going about their daily lives, unaware of the drama playing out on the bridge. He thought about Sophia waking up at her grandmother's house, probably wondering why her father hadn't called yet. He thought about the construction crew waiting for him at the job site, but none of that mattered as much as this moment, this chance to save a life. "Will you help me?" Elena asked suddenly, her voice small and vulnerable. "I don't know how to get back over the railing. I'm scared I'll fall." Marcus felt relief flood through him, like a warm tide. "Of course I'll help you. Just take it slow and don't let go until you're safely on this side." He moved carefully to the railing, positioning himself so that he could guide her back to safety. Elena reached out with one trembling hand, and Marcus grasped it firmly. Her fingers were ice cold, and he could feel them shaking. With his other hand, he gripped the back of her sweater, providing additional support as she carefully maneuvered her way back over the barrier. The moment her feet touched the sidewalk on the safe side of the bridge, Elena collapsed into Marcus's arms, sobbing with relief and exhaustion. He held her gently, the way he would hold Sophia after a nightmare, and let her cry until the worst of the emotion had passed.
"Thank you," she whispered against his shoulder.
"Thank you for stopping. Thank you for caring about a stranger." Marcus stroked her hair gently. "You're not a stranger anymore, and you're not alone. We're going to figure this out together, okay? One step at a time." As they stood there on the bridge, with the morning sun climbing higher in the sky and the river flowing peacefully below them, Marcus had no idea that he had just saved the life of someone whose story was intimately connected to his own. The revelation that would come would shake both of their worlds and prove that sometimes the most important moments in our lives happen when we're not looking for them. Marcus called his supervisor Mike from the bridge, explaining that he had encountered a family emergency and would be late. Mike grumbled about the timing, but agreed to cover for him until he could make it to the site. Marcus then drove Elena to the nearest diner, a small place called Rosie's that served coffee strong enough to wake the dead and breakfast portions that could feed a construction crew. Elena sat across from him in a worn vinyl booth, her hands wrapped around a steaming mug of coffee, as if it were a lifeline. The color had returned to her cheeks, but Marcus could still see the fragility in her posture, the way she seemed to fold in on herself, as if trying to disappear. He had ordered her scrambled eggs and toast, but she had barely touched the food, instead pushing it around her plate with a fork. "When was the last time you ate a real meal?" Marcus asked gently, noting the hollow look in her cheeks and the way her sweater hung loose on her thin frame. Elena shrugged. "I don't remember. Maybe Sunday? Everything has been such a blur since I found the papers." She looked up at him with those striking hazel eyes. "Why are you being so nice to me? You don't even know me." Marcus thought about how to answer that question. The truth was, he wasn't entirely sure himself. There was something about Elena that tugged at his heart, something beyond just the obvious fact that she had been in crisis. Maybe it was the way she reminded him of Sophia, or maybe it was simply that he understood what it felt like to be alone and overwhelmed. My grandmother used to say that we're all connected in ways we can't see, Marcus said, finally. She believed that when someone crosses your path at exactly the moment you can help them, it's not a coincidence. It's the universe giving you a chance to do something that matters. Elena smiled for the first time since he had met her, a small, tentative expression that transformed her face. Your grandmother sounds like a wise woman. She was. She helped raise me and my sister after our parents died in a car accident. I was 12 and Maria was only 6. Grandma Elena always said that family isn't just about blood. It's about choosing to love someone no matter what happens. Elena's fork clattered against her plate. Did you say your grandmother's name was Elena? Marcus nodded. Elena Vasquez Rodriguez. She passed away about 5 years ago, but she was the strongest person I ever knew. Why? Elena stared at him with an expression Marcus couldn't quite read. It was part shock, part confusion, and something else he couldn't identify. It's just strange, that's all. My name is Elena too, and the man who raised me, Robert. He sometimes calls me by a Spanish nickname, Elenita. I never knew why, since he's not Hispanic. Marcus felt a small chill run down his spine, but he pushed the feeling aside. It was probably just coincidence. Elena was a common enough name, after all. Maybe he just liked the sound of it. People sometimes pick up words and phrases from different cultures. Elena nodded slowly, but Marcus could see that something was still bothering her. She took a small bite of her eggs and chewed thoughtfully before speaking again. Marcus, when I was standing on that bridge, I was thinking about all the things I never got to know about my real family. Robert tried his best, but there are so many questions he can't answer. Like why I have these hazel eyes when his are blue, or why I'm so small when he's over 6 feet tall. I always assumed I just took after my mother, whoever she was. Marcus studied her face as she spoke. Now that he was really looking at her, he could see that there was something familiar about her features. The shape of her eyes, the curve of her mouth, even the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was nervous. It reminded him of someone, but he couldn't quite place who. Have you tried searching for information about your birth parents? Marcus asked. There are databases and services that can help adopted people find their biological families. Elena shook her head. Robert always discouraged me from looking. He said that some things were better left in the past, that I should focus on the family I had instead of the one I lost. But now that I know he was hiding this from me, I wonder what else he might have been keeping secret. Marcus reached across the table and covered her hand with his. Maybe he was just trying to protect you. Sometimes parents make decisions that seem wrong from the outside but come from a place of love. Elena's eyes filled with tears again. That's what makes this so hard. I'm angry at him for lying, but I also love him so much. He's been everything to me for 20 years. The thought of losing him is unbearable. Tell me about his condition, Marcus said gently. You mentioned cancer? Elena nodded, pulling a tissue from her purse to wipe her eyes. Pancreatic cancer. Stage 3. The doctors say that with aggressive treatment he might have 18 months, maybe 2 years. But the treatments are experimental and incredibly expensive. Our insurance will cover the basics, but the really promising therapies cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. Marcus felt his heart sink. Pancreatic cancer was one of the most aggressive forms of the disease. He had lost a co-worker to it just 2 years earlier, and he knew how quickly it could progress.
I'm so sorry, Elena.
That must be terrifying for both of you. The worst part is that he's been putting off treatment because he's worried about the cost. He doesn't want to leave me with crushing debt when he's gone, but I don't care about the money. I would rather spend my whole life paying off medical bills than lose him now. Elena's voice broke again, and Marcus felt a surge of admiration for this young woman who was facing such impossible circumstances with such courage. Despite her moment of despair on the bridge, she was clearly a fighter. What kind of work does Robert do? Marcus asked. He's a mechanic. He owns a small auto repair shop on the east side of town. Rodriguez Auto Repair. Elena paused, seeming to realize what she had just said. That's strange. I just realized that his shop has the same last name as yours, Rodriguez. What are the odds of that? Marcus felt the world tilt slightly around him. Rodriguez. Auto Repair. He knew that shop. His sister Maria had taken her car there for years, always praising the honest owner who charged fair prices and did excellent work. A man named Robert Rodriguez, though, as far as Marcus knew, they weren't related. Rodriguez was a common enough surname in this part of Texas. Small world, Marcus said, though his voice sounded strange to his own ears. My sister has been a customer there for years. She always speaks very highly of the owner. Helena brightened slightly.
Really?
Robert would love to hear that. He takes such pride in his work. He always says that a person's reputation is the most valuable thing they own. Her expression grew sad again. I've been trying to keep the shop running while he's sick, but I don't know the first thing about car repair. We've lost a lot of customers over the past few months. Marcus made a mental note to have Maria spread the word among their friends about the shop's situation. Maybe they could help drum up some business while Robert was dealing with his illness. Elena, I know this is all overwhelming, but I think you should go see Robert today. Talk to him about what you discovered. Give him a chance to explain why he kept the adoption secret. You might be surprised by what you learn. Elena nodded slowly. You're right. I've been avoiding him since I found the papers yesterday. I was so angry and hurt that I couldn't bear to look at him, but running away won't solve anything, will it? No, Marcus said gently. And from what you've told me about him, it sounds like he loves you very much. People who love us sometimes make mistakes, but that doesn't mean their love isn't real. Elena finished the rest of her coffee and picked at her toast. Some color was returning to her cheeks, and Marcus was relieved to see that the desperate, hopeless look was fading from her eyes. She was stronger than she realized, he thought. She just needed to remember that strength. Would you come with me? Elena asked suddenly. To see Robert, I mean. I know it's a lot to ask, and you've already done so much for me, but I'm scared to face him alone. I'm worried that I'll lose my temper and say things I'll regret. Marcus checked his watch. It was already past 10 in the morning, and he really did need to get to work. But looking at Elena's hopeful, frightened face, he knew he couldn't abandon her now. Mike would just have to understand. Of course I'll come with you, Marcus said. But first, let's stop by a pharmacy and get you something to eat properly. You need to take care of yourself if you're going to help Robert through his treatment. Elena smiled again, and this time it reached her eyes. Thank you, Marcus. I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't stopped on that bridge. As they left the diner and walked to Marcus's truck, Elena linked her arm through his in a gesture that felt surprisingly natural. Marcus found himself thinking about family again, about the unexpected ways that people could come into your life and change everything. He had saved Elena's life that morning, but he was beginning to suspect that she might end up saving his too, in ways he didn't yet understand. The drive to the hospital took 20 minutes through city traffic. Elena directed him through a maze of suburban streets to St. Dié, Mary's Medical Center, a large complex of buildings that sprawled across several city blocks. The parking garage was full, forcing them to circle several levels before finding a space. As they walked through the hospital corridors, Marcus noticed that Elena seemed to know her way around. She led him confidently through the maze of hallways, past the gift shop and the cafeteria, to the elevator bank that served the oncology wing. It was clear that she had been making this trip regularly. Robert's in room 418, Elena said as they rode the elevator to the 4th floor. He's been here for 3 days now, getting tests and consultations. The doctors want to start treatment next week. The oncology wing was painted in soothing colors, with artwork on the walls that depicted peaceful nature scenes. But no amount of interior design could hide the underlying atmosphere of illness and worry that permeated the space. Marcus saw families gathered in small groups, speaking in hushed tones, and nurses moving efficiently between rooms with the practiced calm of people who dealt with crisis every day.
Elena stopped outside room 418 and took a deep breath.
Through the partially open door, Marcus could see a man lying in the hospital bed, reading a newspaper. He was thin, with graying hair and kind eyes, and Marcus could immediately see the resemblance between him and Elena. Not physical resemblance, but something deeper. The way they both held their heads when they were thinking, the gentle expression in their eyes. I'm scared, Elena whispered. Marcus squeezed her shoulder. It's going to be okay. Just remember that you love each other. That's what matters most. Elena knocked gently on the doorframe, and the man in the bed looked up. When he saw Elena, his face lit up with relief and joy. Elenita, he said, setting aside his newspaper and reaching out his arms. I was so worried when you didn't come yesterday. I thought maybe you were angry with me about something. Elena hesitated for just a moment, then rushed to his bedside and threw her arms around him. Marcus could see her shoulders shaking as she held on to the man who had raised her, and he felt his own eyes misting up at the obvious love between them. I'm sorry, Papa, Elena said, using what was clearly her childhood name for him. I was angry, but not about anything you did wrong. I was angry about the situation, about your illness, about feeling helpless. Robert stroked her hair gently, the same gesture Marcus had used to comfort her on the bridge. Mija, I know this is hard, but we'll get through it together, just like we always have. Elena pulled back slightly and looked at her adoptive father with eyes that were bright with unshed tears. Papa, I need to ask you about something. Something important. Robert's expression grew more serious, and Marcus saw a flicker of concern cross his features. Of course, Mija. What is it? Elena glanced back at Marcus, who gave her an encouraging nod. Then she turned back to Robert and took his hands in hers. Papa, I found the papers. The adoption papers, the birth certificates. I know that you're not my biological father. Robert's face went completely white, and for a moment Marcus worried that the shock might be too much for him in his weakened condition. But then Robert's expression crumpled, and Marcus could see 20 years of carefully guarded secrets written in the lines around his eyes. Oh, Elenita, Robert whispered, I'm so sorry. I never wanted you to find out like this. I was going to tell you. I swear I was. I just never found the right time, and then when I got sick, I was afraid that the truth might hurt you even more. Elena was crying now, but they were tears of relief rather than anger. Why didn't you tell me sooner, Papa? Why did you keep it secret all these years? Robert struggled to sit up straighter in his hospital bed, and Marcus moved forward, instinctively, to help adjust his pillows. Robert looked at Marcus with curious eyes, clearly wondering who this stranger was and why he was present for such an intimate conversation. Papa, this is Marcus, Elena said, noticing her father's confusion. He's the reason I'm here talking to you instead of... She trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. Robert's eyes widened with understanding, and he reached out to grasp Marcus's hand. Thank you, he said simply, but the words carried the weight of a father's infinite gratitude. Marcus squeezed Robert's hand gently. Eleanor's special. I could see that from the moment I met her. You did a wonderful job raising her. Robert smiled through his tears. She's the light of my life. Has been since the day I first held her when she was just 6 months old. Elena settled into the chair beside Robert's bed, still holding one of his hands. Tell me the story, Papa. Tell me how I came to be your daughter. Robert closed his eyes for a moment, gathering his strength and his memories. When he opened them again, Marcus could see that he had made the decision to finally share the truth he had been carrying for so long. It was 20 years ago, Robert began, his voice soft but steady. I was working late at the shop one night when a young woman came to my door. She was holding a baby, and she was crying so hard she could barely speak. She told me that she was in terrible trouble, that she couldn't take care of you anymore, and that she needed someone good to love you and keep you safe. Elena leaned forward, hanging on every word. Who was she, Papa? What was her name? Robert hesitated, and Marcus could see the internal struggle playing out on his face. This was clearly the part of the story that he had been most reluctant to share. Her name was Carmen, Robert said finally. Carmen Rodriguez. She said she was my niece, the daughter of my brother Miguel, who had died in the war. But I had never heard of her before that night, and something about her story didn't quite add up. I think she might have been confused about our family connection. Or maybe she just picked our name because she thought it would help convince me to take you in. Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. Carmen Rodriguez. His ex-wife's name was Carmen, and her maiden name had been Rodriguez before they married. But that was impossible. Carmen had never been pregnant before Sophia was born. She had never mentioned having another child. What did this Carmen look like? Marcus heard himself asking, though his voice sounded distant and strange. Robert studied Marcus's face carefully. She was small, maybe 5'3", with dark hair and brown eyes. Pretty, but she looked like she had been through something terrible. She kept looking over her shoulder like she was afraid someone was following her. Marcus's world began to spin. The physical description matched Carmen perfectly. But how could his ex-wife have had a child 20 years ago? She would have been only 16 or 17 at the time, and Marcus had met her when she was 19. She had never mentioned having a baby before they met. Elena was looking back and forth between Marcus and Robert, clearly sensing that something significant was happening, but not understanding what. Marcus, are you all right? You look like you've seen a ghost. Marcus opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. His mind was racing, trying to make sense of what he had just heard. Could it be possible? Could Elena be Carmen's daughter? Could she be Sophia's half-sister? But even as the thought formed in his mind, Marcus knew there was only one way to find out for sure, and the implications of that possibility were staggering. Marcus stumbled backward until he felt the hospital room wall against his back. The fluorescent lights overhead seemed too bright, and he could hear his heartbeat pounding in his ears. Elena and Robert were both staring at him with concern, but their voices seemed to come from very far away. Marcus, what's wrong? Elena was saying, rising from her chair. You look like you're going to faint. Robert struggled to sit up straighter in his hospital bed. Son, do you need me to call a nurse? Marcus held up a shaking hand. No, I'm okay. I just need a moment. He took a deep breath, trying to organize the chaos in his mind. Robert, this Carmen who brought Elena to you, did she tell you anything else about herself? Anything about where she came from or why she couldn't keep the baby? Robert exchanged a worried glance with Elena before answering. She was very upset, crying and shaking. She kept saying that she had made terrible mistakes and that she couldn't fix them. She said the baby's father was a dangerous man, who would hurt both her and Elena if he found them. She begged me to promise that I would never try to find her, that I would never tell anyone where Elena came from. Marcus felt his knees give out slightly, and he slid down the wall until he was sitting on the floor. The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place with horrifying clarity. Carmen's unexplained absences when they first started dating, her reluctance to talk about her past, the way she had sometimes looked at Sophia with an expression Marcus had never been able to identify. It hadn't been just maternal love he was seeing. It had been guilt. Elena knelt down beside him on the hospital floor. Marcus, you're scaring me. What's going on? Do you know something about my birth mother? Marcus looked up into those hazel eyes that he now realized looked exactly like Sophia's. The same unusual color, the same flecks of gold around the iris. How had he not noticed the resemblance immediately? Elena even had the same small scar above her left eyebrow that Sophia had gotten when she was 3 years old and fell off her tricycle. Elena, Marcus said quietly, I need to ask you something. And I need you to be completely honest with me. When is your birthday? Elena looked confused by the question. May 15th. I'll be 21 next month. Why? Marcus closed his eyes and did the math. Sophia had been born in December, which meant Carmen would have been pregnant with her around March of the previous year. But if Elena had been born in May, 20 years ago, then Carmen would have been pregnant with her when she was just 16. 2 different pregnancies, 2 different children, born almost exactly 4 years apart. Marcus, you're frightening us, Robert said from his hospital bed. Please tell us what you're thinking. Marcus opened his eyes and looked directly at Elena. I think Carmen Rodriguez might have been my ex-wife, the mother of my daughter Sophia. The silence in the hospital room was so complete that Marcus could hear the hum of the air conditioning system and the distant sound of voices in the hallway. Elena's face had gone completely white, and she was staring at Marcus as if he had spoken in a foreign language. That's impossible, Elena whispered. You said your daughter is 8 years old. I'm 20. We can't be sisters. Half-sisters, Marcus corrected gently. Same mother, different fathers. He pulled out his wallet and extracted a photo of Sophia, taken just last month at her school's spring carnival. In the picture, Sophia was laughing as she rode the carousel, her hazel eyes sparkling with joy. Eleanor took the photo with trembling hands and stared at it for a long moment. The resemblance was unmistakable. Sophia was a younger, happier version of Elena herself. The same delicate bone structure, the same dimpled chin, the same way of tilting her head when she smiled. Oh my God, Elena breathed. She looks exactly like me when I was her age. She looked up at Marcus with wonder and confusion. But why would our mother give me away and keep her? What was different about Sophia? Marcus felt his heart breaking for this young woman who had spent her whole life wondering why she wasn't wanted. Elena, I don't think it had anything to do with you. I think Carmen was very young and very scared when she had you. She probably thought she was doing the best thing for you by finding someone stable like Robert to raise you. But she kept Sophia, Elena said, her voice small and hurt. She chose to be Sophia's mother, but not mine. Robert cleared his throat from his hospital bed. Mija, may I see that photograph? Elena handed him the picture, and Robert studied it carefully, a strange expression crossing his face. You know, now that I see this little girl, I'm remembering something else about that night. She kept talking about how she couldn't make the same mistake twice, how she had to be better this time. I thought she was just rambling, that maybe she was talking about a previous pregnancy. Marcus stood up slowly, his mind reeling with the implications of everything they had discovered. Carmen left Sophia and me when Sophia was 4 years old. She said she wasn't ready for motherhood, that the responsibility was too much for her. But maybe the real reason was that every time she looked at Sophia, she was reminded of the daughter she had given away. Elena was crying again, but these tears were different from the desperate sobs on the bridge. These were tears of grief for the mother she had never known and the sister she had never met. All these years I've had a sister, and I never knew. She's been growing up just a few miles away from me. Elena, Marcus said gently. Would you like to meet her? I could pick her up from school today, bring her here to meet you and Robert. Elena's face lit up with a mixture of hope and terror. Do you think she would want to meet me? What if she's angry that I exist? What if she hates me for taking our mother away from her? Marcus knelt down beside Elena's chair and took her hands in his. Sophia is the most loving, open-hearted person I know. She's always wanted a big sister. She's going to be thrilled to discover that she has one. Robert was smiling now despite his illness and the emotional upheaval of the day. A granddaughter, he said softly. I'm going to have another granddaughter. Elena looked at him with surprise. Papa, Sophia isn't your biological granddaughter any more than I'm your biological daughter. Robert's expression grew stern. Elenita, listen to me carefully. Biology doesn't make a family. Love makes a family. Choice makes a family. You are my daughter in every way that matters, and that little girl in the photograph is my granddaughter. End of discussion. Marcus felt a surge of respect for this man who had opened his heart to a frightened young woman's baby 20 years ago and had never wavered in his commitment to that child. Robert was the kind of father Marcus hoped to be, the kind of man who understood that real strength came from love, not biology. I should call my sister Maria, Marcus said. She picks Sophia up from school on Tuesdays. I need to let her know what's happening. Marcus stepped into the hallway to make the call, giving Elena and Robert a few minutes alone to process everything they had learned. Through the partially open door, he could hear them talking quietly, Elena asking questions about her early childhood, and Robert sharing memories he had kept locked away for years. Maria answered on the second ring. Marcus! Where are you? Mike called me, looking for you. He said you had a family emergency? Maria, I need you to sit down. What I'm about to tell you is going to sound impossible, but it's true. Marcus took a deep breath. I found Elena today. I found Carmen's other daughter. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Marcus, what are you talking about? Carmen never had another daughter. Yes, she did. She had a baby 20 years ago, when she was 16. She gave her up for adoption to a man named Robert Rodriguez, who owns the auto shop where you take your car. Marcus could hear Maria's sharp intake of breath. Maria. Elena is Sophia's half-sister. She's been living here in the city this whole time. Are you sure? Maria's voice was barely a whisper. How do you know it's really her? The timeline fits. The physical resemblance is unmistakable. And Maria, the man who raised her, Robert, he's dying of cancer. Elena was so desperate and alone that she almost jumped off the Riverside Bridge this morning. That's how I found her. Oh my God, Marcus. Is she okay? Are you okay? We're at the hospital now. Robert is here for cancer treatment, and Elena is with him. I want to bring Sophia here to meet them both. Can you pick her up from school and meet us here? Marcus could hear Maria moving around, probably gathering her things. Of course. I'll get Sophia right now and drive straight to the hospital. Marcus, how is Sophia going to handle this? Learning that her mother had another child? I think Sophia will be excited. You know how she's always wanted siblings. But Maria, I need you to prepare her gently. Explain that we've found someone very special who is part of our family. I'll be there in an hour, Maria promised. And Marcus, I'm proud of you for stopping to help this girl. Grandma Elena would be proud too. Marcus ended the call and returned to the hospital room, where he found Elena and Robert looking through a photo album that Elena had brought with her. The pages were filled with pictures of Elena at various ages, from a chubby toddler to her high school graduation. Robert had documented every milestone, every birthday, every important moment of her life. Look at this, Elena said, showing Marcus a picture of herself at about Sophia's age. She was wearing a yellow dress and had lost both her front teeth, giving her a gap-toothed grin that was absolutely identical to Sophia's current smile. You two could be twins, just born 12 years apart, Marcus observed. Carmen's genes are definitely strong. Elena closed the photo album and looked at Marcus with serious eyes. Marcus, I need to ask you something. Do you think Carmen ever regretted giving me away? Do you think she ever wondered what happened to me? Marcus considered the question carefully. He thought about Carmen's behavior during their marriage, her periods of unexplained sadness, the way she sometimes seemed to be looking for something she couldn't find. I think she thought about you every day. I think she carried the weight of that decision with her always. It might even be part of the reason she couldn't handle being Sophia's mother. Maybe every time she looked at Sophia, she was reminded of the choice she made with you. Robert reached over and squeezed Elena's hand. Mija, people make different decisions at different times in their lives. Your mother was just a child herself when you were born. She did what she thought was best for you, giving you to someone who could provide stability and love. That doesn't mean she didn't love you. Elena nodded, wiping away fresh tears. I know, Papa, and I'm grateful. If she hadn't brought me to you, I never would have had the childhood I had. You gave me everything I needed. And now you have even more, Robert said with a smile. You have a sister who needs you, and you need her. You have a new family member who cares about you. He looked at Marcus. 'Cause Marcus does care about you, Mija. I can see it in his eyes. You saved each other today. Marcus felt the truth of Robert's words settle into his heart. He had driven across that bridge intending to save a stranger's life, but Elena had given him something precious in return. She had given him the chance to expand his definition of family, to understand that love could grow in unexpected places and connect people in ways that defied explanation. There's something else we need to discuss, Marcus said gently. Elena, you mentioned that Robert's medical expenses are overwhelming. I want you to know that you don't have to face that alone anymore. Sophia and I, we're family now. We help take care of family. Elena shook her head immediately. Marcus, I can't accept your money. You barely know me. You're Sophia's sister, Marcus said firmly. That makes you my family too. And family takes care of each other. He looked at Robert. Sir, would you allow me to research some options for your treatment? I have some connections in the construction industry, people who might know about financial assistance programs or experimental treatment options. Robert's eyes filled with tears. Son, I don't know what to say. You've already done so much. You raised Elena to be the remarkable young woman she is today. You kept her safe and loved when she needed it most. Now let us help keep you safe and loved. Marcus looked back and forth between Elena and Robert. We're going to get through this together, all of us. Elena stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city where she had lived her whole life without knowing that her sister was so close. 20 years, she said softly. 20 years I could have known Sophia. 20 years we could have been sisters. Marcus joined her at the window. But you found each other now, and you have the rest of your lives to make up for lost time. Sophia's going to be here soon, and she's going to love you immediately. I can guarantee it. Elena turned to face him, and Marcus could see that the despair that had nearly consumed her on the bridge had been replaced by hope. Not just hope, but determination. She was going to fight for this new family she had found, fight for Robert's health, fight for the chance to build a relationship with Sophia. Marcus, Elena said quietly, what if Carmen comes back someday? What if she wants to see Sophia again? Will you tell her about me? Marcus thought about his ex-wife wherever she was now. Carmen had made her choices, and those choices had consequences that rippled out in ways she probably never imagined. If Carmen ever comes back into our lives, she'll have to face the truth about both of her daughters. She'll have to answer for the pain she caused and the love she walked away from. But that's a bridge we'll cross if we ever come to it. Elena nodded, understanding in her eyes. For now, it's enough that I found you and Sophia. It's enough that Robert gets to be a grandfather. It's enough that I'm not alone anymore. Through the hospital room door, Marcus could hear footsteps in the hallway and the sound of a familiar voice chattering excitedly. Sophia was here, and she was about to discover that her world was much bigger and more wonderful than she had ever imagined. Marcus looked at Elena, who was nervously smoothing her hair and checking her reflection in the window. Ready to meet your sister? Elena took a deep breath and smiled. I've been ready my whole life. Sophia's voice echoed down the hospital corridor before she came into view, chattering excitedly to Maria about her day at school.
And then Tommy Martinez tried to put a frog in Jenny's backpack. But Mrs.
Henderson saw him and made him write apology letters to all the girls in our class. Marcus stepped into the hallway just as Sophia and Maria rounded the corner. Sophia was wearing her favorite purple dress, with sparkly unicorns on it, and her dark hair was pulled back in the slightly lopsided ponytail that was her signature look. When she saw Marcus, her face lit up with joy. Daddy! Sophia ran toward him and launched herself into his arms. Marcus caught her and spun her around, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo. No matter how difficult his day had been, holding his daughter always made everything better. Hey, sweetheart, Marcus said, setting her back down. How was school today? It was good, but Aunt Maria said you had a surprise for me. She wouldn't tell me what it was, but she kept smiling in the car like she had a big secret. Sophia looked around the hospital corridor with curious eyes. Why are we at the hospital? Are you sick, Daddy? Marcus knelt down to Sophia's eye level and took her small hands in his. No, baby, I'm not sick, but I do have something very special to tell you. Something wonderful that I think will make you very happy. Sophia's eyes widened with excitement. What is it, Daddy? Did we win the lottery? Are we going to Disney World? Marcus couldn't help but smile at his daughter's enthusiasm. It's better than Disney World, sweetheart. Do you remember how you've always wished you had a big sister? Sophia nodded vigorously. Yes, I ask Santa for one every Christmas, but you always say that sisters aren't something Santa can bring. Well, it turns out that you've had a big sister all along, and we just didn't know it. Her name is Elena, and she's been living here in our city your whole life. Today I got to meet her, and she's been waiting to meet you too. Sophia's mouth dropped open, and she looked back and forth between Marcus and Maria as if trying to determine whether this was an elaborate joke. I have a sister? A real sister? A real sister, Marcus confirmed. She's 20 years old, which makes her 12 years older than you. And Sophia, she looks exactly like you. When I first saw her, it was like seeing what you'll look like when you grow up. Sophia was bouncing on her toes with excitement now. Where is she? Can I meet her right now? Does she want to meet me? What if she doesn't like me? Marcus stood up and took Sophia's hand. She's in this room right here with her papa, who is sick and needs to stay in the hospital for a while. And sweetheart, she's going to love you immediately. I promise. Maria squeezed Marcus's shoulder. Are you sure about this? It's a lot for an 8-year-old to process. Marcus looked at his sister, seeing his own nervousness reflected in her eyes. Sophia is resilient, and she's been wanting this for so long. Besides, Elena needs this as much as Sophia does. Marcus knocked gently on the hospital room door. Robert? Elena? Sophia is here. Elena's voice came from inside the room, slightly shaky with nerves. Come in. Marcus pushed open the door and guided Sophia into the room. Elena was standing beside Robert's hospital bed, wearing the same nervous expression that Sophia got when she had to give presentations at school. The two sisters looked at each other across the room, and Marcus could actually see the moment when recognition dawned in Sophia's eyes. Oh, wow, Sophia whispered, staring at Elena in wonder. You do look like me. But bigger, brat. Elena laughed, and the sound was filled with relief and joy. Hi, Sophia. I'm Elena. I've been hoping to meet you for a very long time. Sophia walked slowly across the room, studying Elena's face with the intense concentration she usually reserved for particularly challenging jigsaw puzzles. When she reached Elena, she stopped and tilted her head thoughtfully. Are you really my sister? Sophia asked. My real sister? Elena knelt down to Sophia's level, just as Marcus had done in the hallway. I really am. We have the same mama, but different daddies. That makes us half-sisters, but I think we should just call each other sisters, don't you? Sophia reached out and touched Elena's face gently, tracing the line of her cheekbone with one small finger. You have the same eyes as me. The pretty gold color that Daddy says makes me special. Elena's eyes filled with tears. Your daddy is right. These eyes do make us special. They connect us, even though we've been apart for so long. Sophia suddenly threw her arms around Elena's neck in the fierce, wholehearted hug that she reserved for the people she loved most. Elena held her tightly, and Marcus could see both sisters crying happy tears as they embraced for the first time. I wished for you every birthday, Sophia whispered into Elena's ear. Every shooting star, every dandelion, every wishbone. I wished for a big sister who would love me and play with me and teach me things. Elena pulled back slightly to look at Sophia's face. Well, all those wishes came true today, and I have so many things I want to teach you and show you. Sophia turned toward Robert, who had been watching the reunion with tears streaming down his cheeks. Are you Elena's papa? Robert smiled warmly.
I am. Badly.
My name is Robert, but you can call me Grandpa Robert if you'd like. Sophia's eyes grew wide. I get a sister and a grandpa today? This is the best day ever. She walked over to Robert's bedside and studied him carefully. Are you very sick, Grandpa Robert? Robert reached out and took one of Sophia's small hands in his much larger one. I am sick, Mija, but the doctors are going to help me get better. And having you and Elena in my life is going to make me stronger. Sophia nodded solemnly. My friend Jessica's grandpa was sick last year, but he got better because his family took really good care of him. Elena and I will take good care of you too. Marcus felt his heart swell with pride at his daughter's easy acceptance of these new family members. Sophia had always had an enormous capacity for love, but her immediate embrace of Elena and Robert still amazed him. Maria stepped forward and introduced herself to Elena and Robert, and soon the small hospital room was filled with conversation as the new extended family began to get to know each other. Sophia peppered Elena with questions about her favorite color, her favorite animals, whether she liked ice cream, and if she knew how to braid hair. Elena answered each question with patience and delight, clearly enchanted by her younger sister's enthusiasm. "Elena," Sophia said suddenly, "do you have pictures of when you were little? I want to see if we looked the same when we were babies." Elena looked at Robert, who nodded encouragingly. "I have lots of pictures, sweetheart. Would you like to see them?" Robert pulled out the photo album they had been looking through earlier, and Sophia climbed up onto the hospital bed beside him to get a better view. As Elena turned the pages, Sophia gasped with amazement at picture after picture that could have been her own baby photos. "Look, Daddy," Sophia called out, pointing to a picture of Elena at about age 6. "She's missing the same teeth I'm missing, and she has the same scar above her eyebrow." Marcus moved closer to see the photo Sophia was pointing to. In the picture, Elena was grinning toothlessly at the camera, and sure enough, there was a small white scar above her left eyebrow, identical to the one Sophia had gotten from her tricycle accident. "How did you get that scar?" Sophia asked Elena. Elena laughed. "I fell off my bike when I was 3 years old and hit my head on the sidewalk. Grandpa Robert rushed me to the emergency room, and they had to put 3 stitches in my forehead." Sophia touched her own scar.
I got mine from falling off my tricycle when I was 3 too.
"We even got hurt the same way," Robert chuckled. "Some things run in families, even when the family members grow up apart." Maria pulled Marcus aside while the sisters continued looking through the photo album. "This is incredible, Marcus. The resemblance is so strong it's almost eerie. But how are you processing all of this? Finding out that Carmen had another child?" Marcus watched Elena patiently explaining the details of each photo to Sophia, answering questions about her childhood pets and favorite toys. "I'm angry at Carmen for keeping this secret. Angry that Elena grew up not knowing she had a sister. Angry that Sophia missed out on having Elena in her life all these years. But I'm also grateful. If Carmen hadn't made the choice she did, Elena might not have ended up with Robert. And if she hadn't ended up with Robert, she might not have become the amazing young woman she is today." "What about the medical expenses for Robert's treatment?" Maria asked quietly. Elena mentioned that it's financially devastating. "I've been thinking about that. I want to set up a fundraising campaign. Maybe reach out to the union guys and see if we can organize something. Robert shouldn't have to choose between his life and leaving Elena with crushing debt." Marcus paused. "And Maria, I want Elena to move in with Sophia and me while Robert is going through treatment. She shouldn't have to face this alone, and it will give the girls time to bond." Maria smiled. "You know what Grandma Elena would say about all this? That the universe brought them together at exactly the right time," Marcus finished. "That there are no coincidences, only connections we're meant to make." Across the room, Sophia was showing Elena how to play a hand-clapping game she had learned at school. Their voices blended together as they chanted the rhyme, and Marcus was struck by how natural they looked together, how quickly they had fallen into the rhythm of sisterhood. "Elena," Sophia said suddenly, "will you come to my school's spring concert next week? I'm singing a solo, and I really want you to be there." Elena glanced at Marcus, who nodded encouragingly. "I would love to come to your concert, Sophia. I wouldn't miss it for the world. And will you help me pick out a dress? Daddy tries his best, but he doesn't really understand about girl things." Sophia shot Marcus an apologetic look. "Sorry, Daddy, but it's true." Marcus laughed. "No offense taken, sweetheart. I think Elena would be much better at helping you with girl things than I am." Elena's eyes were bright with unshed tears again. "Sophia, I would love to help you pick out a dress. And I can teach you how to do different hairstyles, and we can paint our nails together, and I can show you how to make friendship bracelets." "This is going to be so fun," Sophia exclaimed, clapping her hands together. "I always wondered what it would be like to have a sister, and now I get to find out." Robert cleared his throat gently. "Girls, there's something I want to say to all of you." He looked around the room at the faces of his new extended family. "Today started as one of the darkest days of my life. I was facing treatment for cancer, worried about leaving Elena alone in the world, scared about the future. But this afternoon, this room is filled with more love and hope than I've felt in months. Elena, Mija, you are not alone anymore. And Sophia, you have gained not just a sister, but a family that will love and protect you always. Sophia climbed down from the hospital bed and walked over to Marcus. Daddy, can Elena come home with us tonight? I want to show her my room and all my toys. And I want her to read me a bedtime story. Marcus looked at Elena, who nodded eagerly. Would you like that, Elena? You're welcome to stay with us for as long as you need to. I would love that, Elena said softly. I can't think of anything I'd rather do than spend time getting to know my little sister. Sophia grabbed Elena's hand and began tugging her toward the door. Come on, let's go home, and I'll show you everything. I have a dollhouse and a craft box, and a whole collection of rocks I found at the beach. Elena allowed herself to be pulled along by Sophia's enthusiasm, looking back at Robert with eyes that were bright with happiness. I'll be back tomorrow morning, Papa, and I'll bring Sophia with me so you can get to know her better. Robert smiled weakly but warmly. I'll look forward to it, Mija. Now go enjoy your first evening as sisters. As they prepared to leave the hospital, Marcus reflected on the incredible series of events that had brought them all together. This morning he had been running late for work, taking a different route across a bridge, a simple decision that had led to the most important moment of his life. He had stopped to save a stranger's life and ended up gaining a daughter, a father figure, and a deeper understanding of what family really meant. Elena linked arms with Sophia as they walked through the hospital corridors, already deep in conversation about favorite movies and books. Marcus and Maria followed behind, marveling at how quickly the sisters had bonded. You know what this means, don't you? Maria said quietly to Marcus as they reached the parking garage.
What's that?
You're going to have to learn how to braid hair and paint nails. Elena won't be able to do all the girl things by herself. Marcus laughed, watching Sophia and Elena ahead of them, their heads bent together as they planned all the activities they wanted to share. I think I can handle that. Besides, I have a feeling that Elena is going to teach me as much as I teach her. As they drove home through the city streets, Sophia chattering excitedly in the back seat about all the things she wanted to show Elena, Marcus realized that this was what happiness felt like. Not the temporary joy of a good day or a successful project, but the deep, lasting happiness that came from knowing that the people you loved were safe and whole and together. Tonight, for the first time in 12 years, Sophia would fall asleep knowing she had a big sister who loved her. Elena would fall asleep knowing she belonged to a family that would never leave her. And Marcus would fall asleep knowing that sometimes the best things in life came from the simple decision to stop and help a stranger in need. 6 months later, Marcus stood in the backyard of their new house, watching Elena teach Sophia how to change the oil in Robert's vintage 1967 Mustang. The car had been Robert's pride and joy before his illness, and now that he was in remission, he had insisted that Elena learn everything about maintaining it so she could pass the knowledge on to Sophia. Remember, Sophia, you always check the oil level first before you add new oil, Elena was saying, her voice patient and encouraging. Grandpa Robert taught me that too much oil can be just as bad as too little. Sophia nodded seriously, her small hands carefully holding the dipstick. At 8 years old, she was probably too young to be learning auto maintenance, but Robert had insisted that both his granddaughters should know how to take care of themselves and their possessions. Like this, Elena? Perfect. You're a natural at this. Marcus smiled as he watched his daughters work together. The word daughters still felt new and wonderful in his mind. 6 months ago, he had been a single father raising one child. Now he was part of a family of 5 that included Elena, Robert, and even Maria, who had become like an aunt to Elena. The past 6 months had been challenging but transformative. Robert's cancer treatment had been aggressive and expensive, but the experimental therapy had worked better than anyone had dared to hope. The community fundraising campaign that Marcus and Maria had organized had raised enough money to cover the costs of treatment, and Robert was now declared to be in complete remission. Elena had moved into the guest bedroom of Marcus's house the week after they met, initially just to be closer to the hospital during Robert's treatment. But as the weeks passed, it became clear that this arrangement was working perfectly for everyone involved. Elena helped with Sophia's care, picking her up from school and helping with homework. In return, Sophia provided Elena with the unconditional love and acceptance she had been missing her whole life. The legal adoption papers had been finalized just last month. Marcus was now officially Elena's guardian, giving her the family stability she needed as she finished her last year of college. She was studying elementary education, with plans to become a teacher, inspired in part by her relationship with Sophia. "Daddy!" Sophia called out, breaking into Marcus's thoughts. "Come look! Elena taught me how to check all the fluids in Grandpa Robert's car. Marcus walked over to where his daughters were working. Alina had grown confident and healthy over the past months. The hollow look in her cheeks had filled out, and her eyes sparkled with the joy of someone who knew she was loved and valued. She had started therapy to work through the abandonment issues related to Carmen's choices, and she was making remarkable progress. "I'm very impressed," Marcus said, admiring Sophia's handiwork. "Grandpa Robert is going to be so proud when he gets here for dinner tonight." Robert had fully recovered his strength and had recently reopened his auto repair shop. Business was better than ever, partly due to word-of-mouth recommendations from all the people who had supported him during his illness. He came for dinner every Sunday, and the tradition had become the highlight of everyone's week. Elena wiped her hands on a shop rag and looked at Marcus with an expression he had learned to recognize. It was the look she got when she had something important to discuss. "Marcus, there's something I need to tell you. I got a phone call yesterday." Sophia looked up from where she was organizing the tools. "Was it from the college? Did you get accepted to the graduate program?" Elena shook her head. "No, sweetheart. It was from a private investigator. Someone hired him to find me." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. Over the past months, they had all settled into their new family dynamic so completely that he had almost forgotten about the one loose thread in Elena's story. Carmen. Elena's birth mother had never tried to contact her, never shown any interest in the daughter she had given away. Marcus had hoped it would stay that way. "Who hired the investigator?" Marcus asked quietly. Elena glanced meaningfully at Sophia, clearly indicating that this was a conversation they should have privately. "Why don't we finish up here and talk about it later?" But Sophia, with the sharp instincts of a child who had learned to read adult emotions, wasn't going to be distracted so easily. "Is it about our birth mama? Is she looking for us?" Elena sighed and sat down on the back steps, patting the space beside her for Sophia to join her. "Yes, sweetheart. It seems like Carmen is trying to find me. The investigator said she hired him a few weeks ago." Sophia settled beside her sister, her expression serious. "Does she want to find me too?" "The investigator didn't know about you," Elena said gently. "He was only asked to find information about me." Marcus sat down on Sophia's other side, creating a protective circle around his youngest daughter. They had talked about Carmen before, explaining to Sophia that her birth mother had made choices that hurt people, but that didn't mean Sophia was unworthy of love. Sophia had seemed to accept this explanation, but Marcus knew that the reality of Carmen potentially re-entering their lives would be more complicated.
"What do you want to do, Elena?" Marcus asked.
"Do you want to meet with her?" Elena was quiet for a long moment, watching the afternoon sun filter through the oak tree that dominated their backyard. "I've been thinking about it all night. Part of me is curious, you know? I've wondered about her my whole life. What she looks like now, whether she's happy, whether she ever thought about me. And what does the other part of you think?" Marcus prompted. "The other part of me is angry and scared. She gave me away when I needed her most, and now that I've built a life and found a family, she wants to waltz back in and disrupt everything." Elena looked at Sophia. "What do you think, little sister? Do you want to meet our birth mama?" Sophia considered the question with the gravity she brought to all important decisions. "I think I want to see what she looks like, to see if she has our eyes. But I don't want her to take you away from us." Elena wrapped her arm around Sophia's shoulders. "Sweetheart, no one could ever take me away from you. You're my sister, and Marcus is my dad now, and this is my family. Nothing will ever change that." Marcus felt his chest tighten with emotion at Elena's words. 6 months ago, this young woman had been standing on a bridge, convinced that she was alone in the world. Now she was part of something bigger and stronger than any of them could have imagined. "If you decide to meet with her, we'll all go together," Marcus said firmly. "You don't have to face her alone." Elena smiled at him. "I know. That's what makes this easier. Whatever happens, I know I have people who love me unconditionally." The sound of a car pulling into the driveway interrupted their conversation. Through the side gate, they could see Robert's familiar figure climbing out of his truck, moving with the energy and strength that had returned during his recovery. "Grandpa Robert!" Sophia jumped up and ran to greet him, throwing herself into his arms with her usual enthusiasm. Robert caught her and spun her around, laughing at her excitement. "Hola, mi princesa! How are my girls today?" Elena walked over to join them, and Robert enveloped her in